Now, President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has hailed the verdict of the Supreme Court that affirmed him as the rightful senatorial candidate of the All Progressives Congress for Yobe North. According to him, it's democracy at work. In a majority judgment, the Apex Court allowed the appeal filed by the APC against Bashir Machina's candidature. 3 out of a 5-member panel agreed with the position of the APC that the suit at the trial court ought not to have commenced via an originating summons since it contained allegations of fraud.
I didn't, as a person, as an individual, go to the Supreme Court to seek for a redress. But my party did, and my people, the people of Yobe North and Yobe State generally, and many political associates and well-wishers and supporters across the country and beyond, who showed interest that there has to be an appeal at the Supreme Court on this matter. So today, this victory is for all of us involved. I am the symbol, but the victory is for our party, the APC, and for democracy.
Well, joining us now to share his perspective on the Supreme Court ruling in favor of Ahmed Lawan's senatorial bid and, of course, the court order remanding EFCC boss in custody for contempt is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Ola Olanipekun. Good afternoon and welcome to Newsday. It's a pleasure to have you. Let's get straight into it. Let's start with the Senate President's victory, what he called a victory for democracy. Now, if someone can emerge as a candidate of a party for an election without participating in any of the 3 forms of primaries as set out by the Electoral Act, is this not a slap in the face of the validity of the Electoral Act in itself?
Well, you have to look at the circumstances of the case because each case turns on its own facts. We must get the facts right. If you look at the sequence of events, I think what happened was that after the primaries of the APC, where the Senate President lost out to the candidate, what happened was that the party went back and conducted another primary. So the dispute in court was whether that latter primary was validly conducted in view of the earlier primary that had been conducted. So it is not that the Senate President did not go through any primary whatsoever. So the contest was between the first primary and the last one. And by a split decision, the Supreme Court decided that the last primary was in order. It was conducted well in order because the earlier primary was actually a nullity ab initio. So that is what happened. And if the facts of a case actually show that the events leading to a particular legal result is a nullity, you cannot have a result coming out of it. So that is why the first primary was declared a nullity. And what you have then is the second primary, in respect of which the Senate President actually was victorious. So it is that latter primary that was upheld, and it was on the basis of that Senator Lawan was declared the candidate of the APC in respect of that senatorial contest. So it is not a situation of he not taking part in any primary whatsoever. You cannot be a candidate if you don't take part in primaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olanipekun. Of course, we have other matters to touch on, but I would like to stay on this a little bit more. Nura Audu, who's a deputy campaign coordinator, he's not thrilled with this judgment and has actually described this as daylight robbery and very unfortunate in the political history of Nigeria. Now, when asked about what the next course of action he would be taken, he said that they would wait on instructions basically from their leader. As a SAN, I'm wondering what options might still be available for them legally, for those who are not content with the outcome of this case.
The Supreme Court decision. Well, you see, the truth of the matter is that gladiators must realize that there must be an end to litigation. If you have to go to court to vent a point, and at the end of the day, when you've litigated up to the Supreme Court, that is the last bus stop. Whichever way the Supreme Court has decided it, that is the final, because that is the final arbiter in Nigeria. And Nigerians must learn to be contented with whichever way the decisions of courts go. If you take a matter to court, well, he won at both the first instance and the second leg, that's at the High Court and at the Court of Appeal. But under the hierarchy of judiciary in Nigeria, there still lies the Supreme Court. That is the final arbiter in respect of the subject matter of this case. And once the Supreme Court has decided on it, it is final. There is no beating about the bush. The final decision has been taken. All he has to do now is to just go and decide in the corner of his room. Two options are open to him: to go back to his party and hope for another day, because the fact that he has lost out today doesn't mean that he's not going to have other opportunities tomorrow. And then the second option is the one that is better not considered, because I won't advise him that he should seek his luck elsewhere, because with regards to this election, the gate is already closed, election is already here, he doesn't have any other option, so he just has to hold on and wait for another time. So that is it. He's fought a good fight, he's run a good race, but somebody must win at the end of the day. And in this particular instance, it happened to be his opponent that the Supreme Court has found in his favor. So he has to take it the way it is. So that is it. And Nigerians must learn to actually be contented with the outcome of litigation. A lot of things, there are lots of issues that shouldn't even go to the court in the first place. But then, because we have, we could be a little bit emotional, could be very particular about certain facts, certain rights. And if you go through the whole hog of litigation and you get to the last court in the land, then that is it. You just have to take it the way it is. So Citizen Nura would be advised to take it the way it is, should just smile and wait for another opportunity which should come his way. So that is all he has under the law. That's it with regards to that. Now, if I can just speak with regards to the second issue, that is the committee for contempt, or the chairman of the EFCC. It's really indeed very, very unfortunate that this is happening again. I think this is the second time within about 2 months that this is happening. I think around November 8, 2022, the FCT High Court sitting in Maitama had cause to commit the chairman of the EFCC for contempt. And this contempt is simply for refusal to obey court orders. And now, coming so early again in 2023, the other High Court sitting in Lokoja has also committed the same person for contempt of court, again for disobedience to court order. That's where you keep wondering, why would a public official have the penchant to keep disobeying court orders? Nobody at all, no matter how highly placed, no matter what position you occupy, not even the president of Nigeria. In fact, the higher the position you occupy, the greater the burden of responsibility on you, that you must show good example. You must live within the ambits of the law. You must obey the law. If you are president of Nigeria, or if you are chairman of EFCC, you are so because of operation of law. It is the EFCC Establishment Act 2022 as amended in 2002 as amended in 2004 that established the office of chairman and then created the EFCC itself and gave EFCC a lot of wide powers. and also gave regulations as to how these powers are going to be utilized. So you cannot accept to become chairman of EFCC, which is an office that created by statute. And then you get there, you get screened, you get sworn in, and you get there and you don't carry out your responsibility in accordance with the law. It is simple. You can't do it. You cannot do it because without that act, you don't have a right to be chairman of EFCC. Is the act, is the law that makes you chairman of EFCC. Or put you in any position whatsoever. If you are president, it's the act that put you there. Or if you are attorney general, it's the act, it's the constitution that put you there. So you must stay within the ambit of law in the conduct of your business. Over the years, the EFCC has always had a running battle with the law. You must realize that under the Nigerian Constitution, in fact, Section 34, in fact, the entirety of Chapter 4 of the Constitution has to do with the fundamental human rights of Nigerians. And this is always the area where the EFCC always has problems. It's very clear. Section 34, dignity of the Nigerian person. You don't just treat Nigerians anyhow. The fact that somebody has a case does not mean that he has lost his citizenship. The presumption which we have under the law of Nigeria, constitutional presumption, is that of innocence. And it's not only when you are taken to court that you are presumed innocent. Even when you are being investigated, in fact, you are presumed innocent. The degree, if I can put it that way, of your innocence, even as of the time you are being put over for investigation, is even higher than when you have been investigated and the commission has believed that probably you have committed an offense, you are now indicted, we are going to try you, things like that. Even at that stage, the Constitution still presumes you innocent. So much less for somebody, or much more rather, for somebody who has just been invited, just invited this man, you've not even heard from him. And then from that point, the man has his right. He has his right to personal dignity. He has his right to a fair hearing. He has his right to presumption of innocence. He has his rights to property. You know, all these rights are there. He has his right to freedom of movement.
Mr. Olanipekun, if I may just interrupt you. Mm-hmm.
Yes, please.
So, yes. Having set the scene, with the, speaking out on these rights and painting them out, one of the major concerns arising here is that the precedent that has been set is that although he's been called to be arraigned and so forth, there will be no consequences, there will be no action taken. That in the past, a precedent has been set that no matter what it is that is issued out to him, whatever order or instruction, he still walks away. That's the chairman of the EFCC. He will still walk away. How likely is it, do you think, that he will spend these 14 days in Kuje prison as has been charged?
Well, the way the law works is such that he doesn't have to spend the 40 days. The law is that, or the order is that, he should be committed to prison until he purges himself of the contempt. Now, what was it that the court asked him to do that he failed to do? He was asked to produce citizen Bello in court. He didn't produce him. So, all he has, and then, let me mention this. It is not as if immediately the court made the order, then he didn't comply, then the order of committal was made. No. There is a procedure. He didn't comply. Form 48 was served on him. That is for him to show cause. To draw his attention to the notice of consequences of disobedience of court order. So Form 48 was served on him to let him know that, look, your disobedience have consequences. He ignored it. Form 49 was served on him for him to come and show cause why he should not be committed to prison for contempt of court. He ignored it. A motion was filed and served on him, giving him notice that we are going to move the court to give an order for you to committed for contempt and be committed to prison. He ignored it. Well, at the last moment, he came the lawyers came to court, but they could not come up with any reasonable excuse. So the court granted the application and made another of his committers. So he goes to prison. The Inspector General of Police is going to carry out that order. He's going to go to prison, or at the earliest time possible, he goes back to that court to go and to go and purge himself for the contempt. All he has to do is to go and release that particular citizen. And if there are other orders that the court has made, like in this particular case, the court has made an order for an apology for the citizen for so detaining him in flagrant breach of his fundamental human rights. So he has to go there. He has to go ahead and make that apology. We must comply with the law. We must realize that this is a Federal Republic of Nigeria, a country that's funded on law and on procedure and on rule of law. So he must comply with the orders. It's not something that he can just walk away. And if he doesn't purge himself of the contempt, he's going to remain in prison for as long as it takes him to purge himself of the contempt. So if he purges himself of the contempt within 48 hours, he gets released from the prison. So he doesn't have to spend the whole of 14 days there. But the law has to be complied with. There is an order now for the Inspector General of Police to comply with. So we are now waiting to see whether the Inspector General of Police will comply with this order. If he doesn't comply, he again will become liable for committal for contempt. We say we can't just continue as if the law does not exist. The EFCC itself, or any institution whatsoever, or the police, they are all set up by statute. So they must operate within the ambit of the Constitution and all statutes that are extant in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And it is not rocket science. All the administrative heads of this place have to do is to come up with an operational procedure, a manual, by means of which you ensure that in your investigation, all you are going to do will be in compliance, will be within the ambit of the law. It is not difficult to do.
Indeed.
Do not engage in media trial. Do not presume a citizen to have been guilty of an offense until he has been taken to court and until he has been so convicted. And that is why you see that things are getting better. You must have observed that of recent, there has been a reduction in the incidences whereby people are paraded, they are lined up and say this one is guilty of this one was arrested for this one, because all those things are prejudicial. They are prejudicial to the fundamental human right of fair hearing or presumption of innocence of those citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Olanipekun.
They are going to, if they are going to do anything with regards to publicity, they will have to screen the identity of those citizens. We must comply with the law.
Thank you.
I can assure you that for as long as things continue like this, if an official of the government is committed for contempt and he doesn't purge himself, another declaration will soon come that such person is not a fit and proper person to hold public office in Nigeria.
Well, Mr. Olanipekun.
That is the position of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olanipekun.
Yes.
Now, one thing that stood out to me in the course of your analysis when you were talking about court orders is that no one is above the law, and court orders should be respected and adhered to. And the incidents that came to mind, for one, when it comes to INEC, I recall that there was a Supreme Court judgment compelling INEC to conduct fresh delineation exercises in 3 local government areas. And in that regard, a socio-political group in Delta, they're actually trying to ensure that INEC complies with that. When we also look at cases like Nnamdi Kanu, for instance, where there were court orders for him to be released. And some would say or observe that that's actually being flouted. So when it comes to respecting court judgments or court orders, isn't there a loophole whereby in some cases people can pick and choose whichever order they would choose to honor and without consequence?
That is the point. That is the mischief which we are trying to ensure that we do not allow to fester and to remain supreme in Nigeria. Now, a case is fought at one incidence at a time. in respect of citizen Bello now in Lokoja, the council has been able to exercise uncommon courage of going ahead to commit the chairman of EFCC for contempt. And citizens all over the country are encouraged to take their case a step further. If you get a court order, and the court order says this should be done, and a government official stays there and he doesn't comply, you don't just go to bed and go scratching your head. No, you must look at what is your right within the ambit of the law. Go ahead and cite the person's concern for contempt. Like the lineation judgment you are talking about, if the order is directed at INEC for execution and it's not executed, the council should go ahead. They should do the next thing. Cite, in fact, you have a duty, a professional duty, to make sure that you cite that particular official for contempt. Because as ministers in the Temple of Justice, that is the title of we lawyers, we have a duty to ensure that every order is obeyed absolutely. Nobody has a right to pick and choose which order is to obey, which order is not to obey. And indeed, if somebody enjoys an immunity, is in office today, he enjoys an immunity and he cannot be convicted for contempt, immediately he steps out of the place, we have a responsibility to go after him. We have a duty to ensure that we do not allow things to lie low. If I obtain an order against you and you don't obey, I bet you I'm going to cite you for contempt. I'm going to ensure that I take you down. The bottom line of the whole thing is that I have a responsibility to do this so that the next person would know that you don't take the law with levity. It is because Mr. A does it and gets away with it. Mr. B does it and gets away with it. That's why a lot of people always think they can get away with it. And in fact, a lot of all these investigative agencies, and so, they have that tendency. You pull in somebody, well, the law says he's entitled to bail. You just push bail condition in his front, and you give him such condition that you know that he can never meet. So that when lawyers come and say, look, why have you not released this person on bail? You say, well, we release him on bail. He hasn't been able to meet the condition. Who does that? Who are you hiding? Why hiding behind a finger? We all know all those things. So what simply happens is, what the lawyer brings in is social relations skill. So, okay, now I'm here now. Can you please release him on bail? Let's look at the terms. The terms are okay. At times, they don't come up, they review the terms, and the man gets out. But if they don't do that, then you go to court. You go to court. But more often than not, when they hold such persons in custody and you have a matter in court, when they realize that he's getting to the matter in court, they hold him in custody there until that matter is getting to judgment stage or the court gives judgment. They will now go and arraign the person for trial. Now, does it mean that you knew you could have arraigned for trial this why you didn't until you went to court? So, and if a court has given an order that you must release him, the fact that you are going to arraign him in court is not a difference to that order. So you must first go to that court and go and explain the circumstances why you held him against his wish and the circumstances why you couldn't release him on time, but now you have now been able to arraign him before a court. So the court will not take all those things into consideration. The fact that you've now released him, you've not held him. So as part of this, the court will take into consideration in deciding whether or not to discharge you of the contempt. So you see, this is what we must get right. Persons who hold public office must realize that they cannot treat the rest of us with contempt. We are human beings, for God's sake. We are all Nigerians. So if you, as a Nigerian, you have an issue, anybody can have issues. We've seen presidents who go to jail. We see even the incumbent president, when he finished his tenure as head of state, he was in detention. So we have governors who are in office today. As soon as they leave office, they start battling corruption problems. They start looking for how to get bail and all this and all that. So we are all citizens. Anything can happen. Allegation can be made against anybody. That is why there is constitution that says there is presumption of innocence. We are in a decent society. You are presumed to be innocent. So if you are presumed to be innocent, nobody has the right to treat you as if you're already guilty. Even at times, the people that they hold in their custody, they are treated worse than those who are already convicted. All that must be a thing of the past. We must have a mindset that once you bring in somebody, or when you assume, or you presume, or you suspect that somebody has committed an offense, the law the law which gives you the right to investigate him also presumes that that man is innocent. So you must treat him like that. It's not just a word of mouth. You must treat him to all intents and purposes.
That's a powerful point for us to leave the conversation on. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ola Olanipekun, thank you for your expertise. It's highly appreciated.